Howdy, y'all. I'm Mr. Holga,
And I'm Todd Puckett.
I'm Andy Hess.
and this is Don's Used Photo Equipment, right here in front of the Great Wall of Film.
That's
So, Todd,
yes.
we're ready today. Today is the day. We've been talking about this day for a very, very long time.
Saturday.
Today's the day that you and I get to talk about the new Pentax 17.
Whoa, right. Yeah.
Well, where's your Pentax 17?
I'd still be made at the factory.
Oh man,
Still be, not here.
So
And,
as much as we would love to,
You also have to be on the dealer's list.
the dealer's list.
And I am still working on that. But
And
I'm
he is working on it, guys.
Yeah,
We are
Pentax.
so disappointed that we were not
included in the first
betrothed, gifted. We were not saying here's this precious, one of a kind camera in
Go
the world.
shoot it.
Right. So unfortunately, guys, we won't be talking about the new Pentax 17, which everybody
today.
else in this world is.
Yeah.
However, we are going to be talking to Andrew here about large format photography. We've only been talking about you for months now as well.
We have.
We've been talking about this event, which is actually happening today. So we say, hey, let's get
Yeah.
Andrew in front of the camera. We're gonna have him spill the beans, and we're gonna share it with you guys. So we're gonna talk large format photography. So
But the first thing is that the reason why this whole thing's coming about is because you just moved into this country.
into the country,
Into
well,
the country.
Texas is its own country.
It is. And you have been involved with large format for a long time, but you also, when you got here, you wanted to start meeting other people that
Yes.
shoot large format.
Yes.
And this is how we got to here.
Right. So first things first, Andrew, please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into large format photography specifically.
Okay. Well, when I was a young guy, I went undergraduate school. I got a degree in fine art in photography, and back then
That's
that
cool.
was film.
That was something.
That was film. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Where did you go? What university?
I went to Ohio University in Appalachia, so
All
there was a
right.
lot of things to photograph out there.
Todd and I both went to SMU, so pony up.
Go Mustangs.
And your mascot was?
Our mascot. I didn't follow it.
Oh.
At OU, when people watch football games, they're mostly drinking wine
Sure.
and waiting for the halftime show.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
All right, so MFA in photography.
Well, I have a BFA
Okay.
in photography. I worked as an industrial photographer for many years, which involved scientific, legal, catalogs, and annual reports primarily.
So very technical photography work.
Right. It was technical work, and it was inside a corporation, and because of that, I had the benefit. I had wonderful equipment because corporations buy wonderful equipment.
They do. So definitely so. Okay, and so after school, your first gig was?
Well, when I first got out of school, my first gig wasn't as a photographer. It was running printing presses.
All right.
But running printing presses is a good thing that teaches you a lot about what drives what you need to produce that ends up in print.
Yeah.
So
The end result.
Right. So you learn what works and how tonal range and what shadows will hold in ink and all this stuff that seems unrelated to photography, but actually is directly applicable to a career.
Yeah. Wow.
And so after that, I did work for a short while as an independent commercial guy. I did a lot of slice of life work for developers where they're developing a new development. They want people to get a feeling that, gee, this is a nice place to live.
Right.
So we would do those kinds of things. Then after that, I was employed inside a company as an industrial photographer, I worked there for many, many years. And we did every kind of work you can imagine, from stuff in laboratories to turning over 20-some-odd thousand products a year for catalogs, and pushed a lot of film.
Now, is that mainly through large format or medium format or just all formats?
Well, it was and it started that it was all large format, because when you shoot, in this case, it's sort of a company that was like Ranger Industrial Supply, so a lot of small little technical parts and things,
Mhm.
Right.
and you would shoot them on glass, and then drop the backgrounds, and then they would go in the catalog, float on the page.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of stuff. And then when I did use view cameras, it was if it was related to a large subject, or if it was an application environment where we're trying to show people how to weld, or we're showing them how machine tools work, or things of that nature.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for 17 years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's quite a lot of experience. So obviously, it's stuck with you even beyond that. I mean, I'm assuming you've had an entire career of photography. Tell us about your personal photography. I mean, you know, what do you like to shoot? I mean, obviously, large format. That's why we're here. But
well, I always I like shooting large format. Now, obviously, I've used 35 millimeter for years and years, taking kid pictures and social stuff and that kind of stuff. But large format always appealed to me for two things. First of all, it's a very deliberate process, so it makes you think about composition and how people are in pictures before you shoot. It isn't a thing where I'll shoot a bunch of images and look at them after the fact. The other thing,
the spray and pray approach.
That's right. It's different.
Yeah,
it's a different way
I'll
to
edit that later. It's like no. Let's edit it now in the camera.
Well,
the
other thing that people generally don't understand about large format is when you shoot with an 8x10 camera, it will capture over 20 steps in the grayscale. And when you print it, whether you print shooting color or black and white, when you print it optically, not digitally, you can see all those steps in the grayscale. And what it does is it makes things like skin, which is not opaque, it's translucent. You can see that. And so skin looks beautiful and things just look beautiful, and your eye sucks up all that information. And what's amazing to me is most people have not seen a large print made from a big camera. So the first time they see one, they're just astonished at the beauty that it can produce.
Which brings it. I'm sorry. Yes.
No, as I was telling you, there used to be a place here called Dallas Center for Photography, and Alan Ross would come in and do classes with the assistant for Ansel Adams. Now, I was there when he was talking to one of my customers, Dangerous Brody.
Dangerous, yeah.
And they were talking, and he said, the most beautiful image, they believe, was 8x10 slide film. And they both goes, that was both of their favorite to shoot on. And they said the rendition, the detail was just amazing.
Yeah, well, what happens is when you're using a large format, sharpness, resolution, grain, they're just non-issues. They just disappear.
Yeah.
But what happens with an Ektachrome is, first of all, you shoot Ektachrome at one time if you're going to print, because a lot of people who lay out artwork like to work with a positive so they can see the image. And also scanners were designed to work directly with Ektachrome's positives at one time. But what happens is you take let's say the light reflectance of a piece of paper has a 10-to-1 ratio. When you take an Ektachrome and you put a light behind it, it's now 100-to-1. Your eyes can see 1,000,000-to-1. Yeah. So it looks just brilliant because you can pump light through an Ektachrome, and your eyes can take in all that tonal range easily.
Oh, yeah. Now, we were talking about slowing down. It's like, I've told this to several people. I said, you shoot digital and it's just spray 1,000 shots of each bite of your lunch meal. And then
you can work that way.
When you go 35 millimeter, you slow it down and you have to think about your shots. But then when you go up to large format, it's single shot. I mean, the slow down process is multiplied out. You have to take a lot more time because it's a lot more expensive, a lot more involved in setting it up, focusing, tilting, shifting, getting what you want. And I am finding is that people now, especially in the last 6 months, are wanting to kind of slow the process down and take that time and do that work.
Yes.
And I have had just here, just the past 3 or 4 months, so many people talking about looking into, interested in, but not putting their foot into it yet, large format. A lot of interest out there. So I think this is a perfect time for this.
Yeah, something you mentioned that I'd like to mention too is, yes, 8x10 black and white and color film can be expensive. It's about $4 a sheet for black and white.
Yeah.
It's about $26 a sheet for color, for color negative film, like portrait. But the truth is, you go out and you spend a whole day and you'll expose 3 to 5 sheets.
Right.
Okay, so actually it's not an expensive media because in the process of slowing down, you don't chew off 30 sheets of 8x10 film when you're out shooting.
And you don't shoot 10 rolls of 35 millimeters.
When I'm shooting digital, I'll probably put in 1,000 shots easily. I mean, it's you can hear the cash register. If that was large format, it's like, no, there's just no way. You just can't do it.
You're sitting there going, man, what if you shot 36 shots of a 4x5 tintype?
8x10 slide film holders by themselves are expensive.
Well, I'll give you an example. When I was shooting catalog work, in an entire day of shooting products, setting up and shooting them, I would use 10 shoots in a day.
Yeah.
So saying it's expensive is a little misleading. The process of pre-visualizing, figuring out what you want before you trip the shutter, slows it down. And the other side of it is, yes, you'll shoot 6 sheets, but every single image will be usable. You won't have, I can't make this work.
Well, there's a quality aspect to it. I mean, clearly, the larger the negative,
right,
the better the picture. I mean, and when you're talking about we're looking at your 11x14 beast over there. I mean, that's the amount of information that is going to bring into a negative is just massive. And the fact that you would be able to do a contact print of that, and that's enough. Forget about that. Forget about ever enlarging. Just a contact print, and you're going to have. I don't know how many. I know that it's like 13. A 4x5 is 13 times bigger than a 35 millimeter, 1.5 by 1 inch. The math on that is huge.
Well, all I can say is when you're using a big camera, say 11x14, your eyeball on the negative is the size of an entire 35 millimeter frame.
Yeah.
So you can blow up that eyeball and see a perfectly sharp picture of me reflecting in the eyeball, taking the picture.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So,
it is
8x10's like that too. But any camera can make sharp images. Digital cameras are wonderfully sharp. The thing that film does as an end result, as an artist, is it's that tonal ranging. It makes just the flow of the image from black to white is just beautiful. And most people don't know the language to talk about it, so they don't know what it is. But they see it and they say, wow, that's just something to be seen.
They see it, they just don't know why they're seeing it.
Right.
They can't explain.
So,
but about 15 years ago, I had a customer who had an 11x14, and he went out. He would buy film from me occasionally, and things from me occasionally, and then he went out and shot a mountain, and
the whole mountain,
the whole mountain,
because it fit.
And then he just doubled it. He gave me a print that was 22 by 16 by 20. It was 11 by 14, so it's 28 by 22. And you get a loop, and you sit there, and you can see the trees, you can see the limbs.
It's all in there. Yeah, you'll see birds and trees that you didn't see when you took the picture.
Oh yeah. And it was gorgeous, and he just doubled it. That's all. And if he just did 4 times, 8 times, he'd do the size of a wall. You'd see it'd be easy.
The other side of it is if you're shooting portraits, and there's an interest in old brass portrait lenses.
Yes.
And what makes a portrait lens is not being out of focus. That's what filters are. A portrait lens actually is purposely uncorrected for color. So the colors don't all focus in the same plane.
Right.
And it gives you it makes flesh and things look creamy. And highlights have speculars in them that are really cool.
Okay, cool.
But it appears to be sharp, but it's not.
And
so if you look at the Regal portraits from Hollywood in the 1930s, they were shot with a soft focus lens. And if you're going to use a view camera and you get a soft focus lens and you do portraits, you automatically get that, and it's beautiful. You don't have to go into Photoshop and mess with it. It just comes right out of the camera with this wonderful feel.
Oh yeah,
that's interesting, because most people think portrait lenses are based upon the fact how the bokeh. Can we get the blurry background? And if you're talking about the Fresnel lenses, the ones where they'll have the swirly backgrounds and things like that. That's normally what people say. Oh, we want that effect. It's like, but you're saying portrait lenses completely different. I like that.
Yeah. But as I would say, George Hurrell, he from the 30s, he was the Hollywood star photographer, and that's got into it. I forgot first picture he took was like Pancho Barnes or something, and then it's just everybody goes, I want that, and he just exploded, and he would do large format, and the film at that time was 2 ISO or 5.
Well, it was faster than that, but it was thick emulsion. So,
yeah.
So you'd use it around 25.
And I remember reading a story about him, how he was on location shooting, and he went into his the hotel room and processed the film underneath the rug. he got the rug up, got underneath there, and laid everything out, and just did it right there.
I have a short digression. I'll go with that. I won't make it too long. I learned from an old school photographer who was self-taught. The reason he became a photographer is it paid 25 cents an hour more in the union to be a photographer than to work on the loading dock.
Okay.
So he got into it and he loved it. And I remember the first time I met him, he was showing me how he processes 8x10 film. He would process it for 6 or 7 minutes in D76, which he would he'd put a scoop of more with a teaspoon to juice it up a little. And then after it developed for 4 minutes, he would crack open the darkroom door and look at the image while it's developing and decide if he needed another 3 minutes or 5 minutes to make it look right. and as much as I was just blown away by that,
yeah,
he made beautiful images. It actually worked.
It worked. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I keep wanting us to do an episode on film photography in TV and movies. There was an episode of Magnum PI. The newer Magnum PI.
Oh, yeah.
Where actually they're developing film under a red light. And I'm
Under a
like,
red
no,
light. All things wrong.
I mean, they pulled it out of the can in the red light. I'm like, yep, it's ruined.
Well, you bring up a good point. A lot of people, when they first get into photography, have a lot of frustration with film photography. And a lot of that stems from there's a lot of bad information out there.
Yeah.
And if you have the opportunity to sit in a dark room and have someone who knows what they're doing walk you through processing film or walk you through printing, it will save you tons of frustration in learning the process, because all the stuff on the internet, half of it is inaccurate and will mislead you and can cause you problems.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
It sits the wrong process in your mind that you have to break in real life.
Right. It's like a golfer who has a bad swing because that's what he was taught.
Well, you like teaching on these things, don't you? I mean, it's like, do you teach out of your home? Where do you do your?
Well, I haven't run a workshop in a while.
Yeah.
When I ran workshops, I would do 2 or 3 people affiliated with usually a museum studio school.
Yeah.
Okay. But now what I do is I work a one-on-one with people. I meet someone at an event like this, and they say, "Gee, I want to try this camera, or I want to try color printing. I've never done color printing convention." And I say, "Well, come on over. I built a lab at home," and they come in. They use my lab. And what's beautiful about doing photography now is the best-in-class, wonderful equipment, both cameras and darkroom equipment, are incredibly cheap.
Yeah, I was about to say, I know where he's going on this.
This is a really good...
Everybody's been throwing it away, and you can buy it cheap.
And I don't mean like okay stuff. I mean, it's not even worth getting the not best-in-class stuff, because the best stuff you can buy is cheap.
The top of the line.
So I think that's changing.
Back to the part you're talking about. Is that, taking a class and actually learning something from somebody who's done it before. So I actually read a book on wet plate photography before I took a class. And every other page in the wet plate photography is, oh, this chemical is dangerous. This one's poisonous. This one's going to kill you. This one's going to give you cancer. And you're reading this book, you're like, holy crap, I don't think I can do this. But then I took the class with Lisa Elma Leahy. So I took the class with her, and I'm like, oh, this is easy. I can do this. I mean, once you have somebody actually show you, it's like, wear gloves for this. Don't splash this in your eyes. You'll be okay.
But the chemistry today is a lot different than 100 years ago.
Well,
that is true.
The other thing I could tell you is if you're buying commercially made film, and you're processing it yourself with commercial developers, which you have on the shelf over
there. If I only knew a place you could get that.
If only there was a place.
There isn't any. You don't have those risk issues. You can wear gloves or not wear gloves.
Well, that is true.
But it doesn't matter.
Well, the biggest risk in wet plate photography is the fixer. You can use the standard Ilford rapid fixer off the shelf, but purists will say, no, you have to use cyanide, which of course that's deadly.
Very dangerous.
Well, potassium
All right, so,
cyanide, you don't want to go there.
Guys, we are going to talk about cameras here, hold on, because we've got a table full of cameras. He's going to be picking them up and talking about them here in a second. I have a firm belief that the witness protection program does not work for this one reason. We're creatures of habit.
Yeah.
Okay. You moved to Dallas area,
Where did you go from?
and what I don't want to know what he did. I don't want to know why he. I don't. That's up between him and the feds. Okay.
Okay.
But when you get here to town, you're thinking, you know what? If I was in the witness protection program, I would be so screwed because I would be at a film camera shop before you know it. It's like, where's my local camera shop at? And the bad people tracking me down thinking, yeah, he's going to be in a camera shop. Just stake out there. He's eventually going to show up. So in your case, you get to town and you're thinking, I want to shoot large format photography.
Right.
I want to get this group together. And so let's talk about this. So, what are your goals for this group? What do you want to do? And
well, my goal is ultimately to have a small cadre of people who are actively working.
Right.
And if they don't have the resources in terms of a darkroom or facilities to process film,
right,
find that for them, of which we're blessed that there is that here in town, or they can come and use my laboratory, which is just in my home.
So Facebook page, website, what do we got going on so far?
Well, I just started this, but I do have all my technical literature, which is the underpinnings of how to use large format, out on a blog.
Okay.
But the blog needs a little curating, but I'm going to very shortly have it out in the open so people can go there.
Right.
And it discusses everything from the mechanics of going through taking a picture,
right,
to how to use a light meter. It's interesting, but most people don't know how to use a light meter. They use a light meter with rules of thumb, but they don't understand the underlying principles. So when they get into an unusually lit situation, which is what many people like,
a lot. Yeah.
A lot of people want to photograph large format in really cool looking unusual situations. You need to understand how to use your light meter, and you can't use rules of thumb.
Right, and there are different light meters,
Yeah.
and all that kind of good stuff,
So that's where I'm going with this. I want to get people involved, and if I ended up with half a dozen gun-ho folks, younger folks who are just starting, and people like me who are well involved in this,
who just want to hang around and talk with other people.
Maybe it's nothing more than once a month you get together, have coffee, or you talk large format photography, and you have a great time. So guys, I'm gonna grab if he's got a Facebook page or any sort of links, I'm gonna put them in the description below for the video. So go down there, and you click on a link, and you know what? Show up at an event.
I'll give that to you.
Yeah, show up at an event, and as a matter of fact, we're hoping a lot of people are going to be coming in today, so you got to actually meet some of these folks firsthand.
Yeah.
And you never know. So you were saying, Todd, that this is like the beginning of, hopefully he might actually come back and do some other type of large format here, right?
Yeah. I would be delighted to be invited back to do little workshops for people.
How do you like this space? Do you think this would work for just little things?
I think your space is great. I think you have, if someone decided on a Tuesday they wanted to start doing this, all the supplies to do that and materials are here, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I also know back in your warehouse, you have 10 times the amount of stuff you have out front. And as more of it makes it out front, it's even going to get more exciting.
It is. But it's kind of like now, at my old location, we had two separate buildings. And one was a store, the other one was Fight Club. We didn't talk about it. Well, this one, which kind of was the same thing,
right.
But it's a lot less. I love it because it's just like you go here, you walk over, go through there, boom. And the other one, you go out the door, over, in, and it was a lot more of a hassle. But now, things are going to start coming out of the back, coming into here, and being priced and sold.
Yeah. Well, that makes life easy.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest with you. You have a range of equipment here in large format that is pretty darn broad. Just the stuff you've managed to pull out, not the stuff we haven't even found yet back in your warehouse.
I'm still, since I last talked to you, I found like 4 or 5 more of the Graflex, and I found 2 or 3 more of the rail cameras. And I keep finding these things.
Okay. Well, do you want to start talking about different?
I was thinking the first question I'm going to have. So let's talk. We have, like I said, we've got several cameras here that we can grab anytime. So I guess the first question to you is, let's pretend I'm a beginner large format photographer. I'm not, guys, but let's pretend I am. If you're going to recommend a beginner camera to somebody, which one of these would you recommend? Say, hey, go grab this one. It's got a good price. It's very reliable. Probably doesn't have light leaks.
Well, you bring up a good point, light leaks. The number one, like you're saying, the number one rule of Fight Club.
Yeah.
The number one rule of photography is get a camera that's in good working order, that doesn't have holes in the bellows, that has a lens on it that is a clean and has a shutter that works.
Yes.
Okay. That's rule one.
Number one.
Rule two is what kind of photography you're going to do. If you're going to do landscapes where your camera is always going to be used on a tripod, then you want to consider a view camera, which is dedicated tripod style of camera. We have a few here we can show. If you're going to want to shoot people, you can consider a press style camera. Press style cameras, the beauty of them is a 4x5 press style camera,
which is the speed
which
graphic
is like
there.
right here. You can
just go ahead and grab it. Hold on to it so I can see it. So
this is it. You can use this handheld. Now, if you've ever seen party pictures taken in 1940 where the women look like every woman at the table looks like a model.
Yes, they do.
And part of that is the hairstyles and the makeup of the period. But a lot of it is when you shoot on 4x5, you see their skin looks beautiful.
Yes.
So when you shoot 4x5 or even if you use a roll film back, like 6x7 centimeter roll film back,
which is like what I have
right
here. So a roll film back, 120 film on the back of this lovely little baby Graflex, which unfortunately has pinholes, and I've checked it, has pinholes in the bellows, which unfortunately are horrible. But
well, the idea being that the idea that you can use a large format camera that's handheld will make beautiful images on the fly with a strobe or existing light. This one has a rangefinder that's coupled on it.
Right.
Some of them, the rangefinder isn't working. So if you're going to want to critically focus as you're hand holding, you want to find one with a rangefinder that's working.
Right.
Yeah.
And the rangefinder has to be matched up with the current lens. So if somebody's swapped out the lens, there's a good chance that rangefinder's no bueno.
Well, you have to work it. The other thing about it is the lens. The whole idea of large format is you don't want your technology to be your limiting factor in your quality.
Okay.
So you want a really good lens. Most of these lenses that were on these field camera, these kind of press cameras, are Tessars. They're different names. They're like Graflex Optar or a Schneider Exynar. They're all Tessar designs. They're very, very sharp a couple stops down. Now on view cameras, you use lenses that are called plasmats, which would be like a Nikkor W or a Schneider Simar or Simar S or a Rodenstock. Those lenses are really, really, really sharp. So if you're going to shoot flowers and close-up or things where you want incredible detail, you're probably more into a view camera because the kind of lens you use on it. With these, absolute sharpness isn't as important as the feel of the image. So a Tessar is really well suited, and typically Tessars are a little bit faster than a plasmat style lens.
Okay.
Now, well, I was going to say, one of the first people to make this really a famous format to shoot things with was Ouija. And I mean, if you've seen
Ouija board?
W-E-E-G-E-E.
Yes, he was known for taking embarrassing pictures of aristocracy at social events.
And also crime scenes.
And crimes.
Dead mafia bosses.
He was the original celebrity chaser.
Yeah, I love it.
He pre-focused, and then he just used his foot to step in and out for that range and shot. So he wasn't focusing. He had a focus already picked, and then he would just use his feet as the focusing.
It's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
When people were shooting weddings with film, I've shot a few. I used a Hasselblad, 6x6 centimeter. It's exactly like that. It's all zone focusing. You never look through the viewfinder. You just set the foot on the scale and go with it.
Yeah.
Which to some people that's like scary to do that.
No,
But
that's
actually
standard
works.
street photography. You set it at 8 feet, you point and shoot. That's all you do.
And it works.
And you measure out 8 feet, and you get used to just by sight knowing 8 feet, and you step there.
Right.
That's right.
And just
I mean, so that Graflex was my first camera, and you know what? One of the things I do like about them is the first of all, there's lots of them. There's tons of them out there.
Yeah.
And you know, it's a heavy camera, and if you don't like all those little extra doodads, take them off. Just get rid of it. There's a rear focus curtain on that thing. You can get rid of it.
That's a speed graphic.
That's a speed graphics. There's a rear. You can remove
crown graphic, speed graphic.
You can remove the brackets. You can remove that rangefinder. You can lighten that camera up so much. But the bellows normally are pretty well made, which I always like. So I guess my first tip for anybody who wants to actually buy a large format camera, bring a flashlight with you.
Yes.
And stick it in there and check it, because you're going to see at the corners of the bellows, you're probably going to see little, because those bellows have been stretched and compressed over time, and they're just going to get weak at that point. You want to see them.
May I speak to that briefly?
Please.
Two things. If you need a new bellows, they can be bought on eBay. So if you're
there are places that are making
them. The other thing is, field cameras like this are very similar to what are called technical cameras, and you can buy a much newer one. Toya makes a field camera that's beautiful, that folds closed like
and
this.
They still make one.
And also some of the German manufacturers made wonderful press cameras that are newer, and so their bellows are good, and their bodies are usually aluminum or magnesium.
What are the name brands?
So they're built like I don't know, Plow. I don't use them, but you have one here actually. I think you pulled it out. We can pull it out later. But the idea is that the Graflex was designed to be inexpensive and indestructible. That means that people who use them, like life photographers during the years of photo essays, love them because they beat them up. Who really cares? Yeah. But there are modern alternatives that are more sophisticated. And the newer the camera, the less age-related issues it's going to have.
Yeah,
that is true.
Quite a bit more.
Yeah, it'll cost more.
So, so that's a view camera, right?
This is
a press camera.
Yeah.
But it's got the standard box fold out and all that good stuff. The other shape, obviously, at your feet here, which is the big. You want to grab that and bring it up. This is a rail camera.
This is a mono. This is called a monorail.
He's going to have to hold on to it.
Now, monorail cameras.
I'm useful now.
You are. Look at that.
Monorail cameras, which is a view camera, has some features that go beyond what you would get with a press camera. With these cameras, you can do things such as change the principal plane of focus. Say, for instance, you're taking a picture where there's something in the foreground, you want it in focus, and there's something in the background you want in focus.
Right.
But you can't get them both in focus no matter what you close down to.
Right.
Okay. So with this, let's turn it sideways to the camera.
All right.
With this, you can tilt the lens forward while you're using it. So the film plane and the lens plane are no longer parallel, and your principal plane of focus is now from the near ground to the background, and you can even shoot wide open and everything can be in focus. It also, you can do things where you can change the perspective. With a view camera, when you look at a tall building, there's foreshortening. The building goes to a point because it's further away from you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But with a view camera, you can look up at a building by raising the lens and keeping it parallel to the film plane.
Right, you can raise the lens up or down. And
that's right, but it will still look like you're looking directly straight at the building. It won't look like you're looking up at it. So you can maintain square perspective and parallel walls to the building, even though you're looking up at it.
So these are the ultimate tilt shift cameras, because you know now there's tilt shift lenses where all you can do, you only have one tilt and shift, but in this one you've got the front, the back, and you can raise and lower the lens.
Raise and lower, swing.
Swing. I forgot about swing.
Tilt. There's 6 major movements. I mean, there's a lot of movements.
Well, name them all for us in case I missed.
Well, there's a rise, like looking up at a building. There's a fall when you drop the lens, and what that does is, if you're shooting a portrait and you with small amount of fall, it makes people's shoulders and head larger than their torso, so it gives people an hourglass figure. So you drop the lens.
Like
you do that in the camera. Then you also have a.
So Marilyn Monroe really wasn't that shapely. It was just a camera.
It was all camera. It's all camera.
Oh no, my life is broken.
Now there's also a thing called a swing, and a swing can do one of two things. It can bring a distant and close subject in focus, left to right, like say taking a picture of a picket fence that goes off into the distance. You can also use it.
Side to side.
You can also use it to distort the image. In other words, the image is receding into space, but you want it to look like it's square. You're square to it. You can alter the perspective,
Okay.
and that's done with a horizontal swing. And then
You don't have to keep looking around, Todd.
Sorry.
You can always look at the camera and talk to them.
I'd say there's a lot to it, and believe it or not, getting mastery at it takes a little while, and it's all that part of slowing down and figuring out what you want to do.
I mean, so ultimately, you want to get the camera out and play with all these different adjustments to see what they can do.
You want to play with them.
I mean, it's as we like to say, film photography is so much experimentation. It's like, okay, a new film I've never tried before. Well, go try it out. A new camera. Well, go try it out. Different techniques. Go try it out. I mean, it's, what's the worst that's going to happen? Your photo's not going to turn out? Well, go try it again. You're probably going to get something.
It's interesting you say that. Film photography is extremely forgiving. And what can happen is that when you start, it's sort of the tail wagging the dog. I mean, you don't know how to use a light meter. Maybe the film is out of date. You process it in chemistry, but you'll get something.
Right.
You'll always get something. But as you get better, your mastery, you start zeroing in on having better control. And be honest with you, the part of the joy of it is you never end up with a perfect image. You can end up on which is nearly perfect, but you'll just know its limitations. And then you come back to it a few years later and go, gosh, it's a wonderful image. I don't know why I thought I...
Yeah, I mean, because I think digital photography, because there's a certain degree of over sharpness in digital photography. It's like everything has got such razor sharpness to it, and it's like
normal.
And we've gotten so used to it. But then we go and look at the older photographs, and it's like there's something there that you just don't. It's like, what is it about these older photographs that, even though I've got the greatest technology in the world for taking photos right now, these are still better.
Yeah.
Well, it's because your eye is not. You're not by nature used to seeing everything so sharp.
Yeah.
The little bokeh is a natural thing that your eye sees that relates to your brain. That bokeh, that fuzziness, is more normal for your brain.
Well, first of all, getting that is real easy with large format cameras.
Yeah.
Right.
I think what we're talking about here is on an 8x10 camera, a normal lens is 300 millimeters. That's going to have a lot of bokeh. You can isolate a portrait from the background easily. On a digital camera, the focal length of the lens in your camera might be 1 millimeter or less. And the shorter the focal length, the greater your depth of field. In other words, the greater of everything in focus. So the smaller the camera, the more things that are in focus, which is good for snapshots where you just don't have time to deal with it. But if you're trying to use your depth of field as part of your composition, you have to go to big cameras, or you have to fake it in Photoshop, one or the other.
All right. So once again, still a beginner photographer. What am I going to need to get started?
You're going to need a camera that's reasonably reliable.
Okay.
And my feeling is you want to find one, if you don't know how to check it out, find someone to help you check it out, one that's in good shape.
Somebody who might know a thing or two about cameras.
Yeah.
But I don't know as much about large format as I do.
You can bring it into Don's, and we can go ahead and take it apart and look at it.
All right, I've got the camera. What else do I need?
Okay, you need film holders.
Yes, definitely need. We don't have any within arm's reach, but yes, film holders.
Okay. You need an inexpensive magnifier, a plastic magnifying loop.
Right.
I found the cheaper they are, the better.
And I recommend buying two because you're going to lose one.
Okay. You need a light meter.
Yes, there are several different types of light meters, and obviously, you probably could spend an entire hour talking about light metering, this type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I know there's regular light meters, which people are probably the little handhelds. But then there's also zone focusing light meters that have been specific.
Well, my feeling is you want light meters again. The best one you can possibly buy is very inexpensive today.
Okay.
So if you're going to buy,
you mean like my cell phone?
Well, if you're going to go out and buy a light meter, you want one that will measure reflected light.
Okay.
Incident light also, which is a ball, a little white ball you see on it. And also, many of them also will measure flash. So if it has those three features, that light meter can be used in any number of ways.
Like one of those?
Yep, in any number of ways, and it will work. And there's
Cinema
lots
and
of them
video.
out there. There's lots of them out there. For me, I like the multimeters.
Good job.
The one thing you want to know about a light meter is you want to get one with a digital display, and the reason you want to get a digital light meter is a needle light meter, even a wonderful one like a Gauss and Lunar Pro. You drop it, it's out of adjustment, but then you don't know.
From what you're saying, you drop it, it's out of a job.
Right. But it appears to be working. Where a digital light meter, if the display lights up,
It's working.
it's working.
Okay, digital.
So
Okay.
digital's a good thing, and there's lots of them out there, from anywhere from $20 up to hundreds. And they
So
all-
you've seen those light meters, and obviously they're calibrated for zone focus. They look like a little gun and all that kind of stuff. I always see
Spot meters.
Well,
is that just a spot meter?
Well, what I do is I use a version of the zone system when I shoot with view cameras.
Uh-huh.
The zone system is where you're keeping track of where things land in the grayscale from black and white.
Right.
And in simplest terms, any light meter can use its own system. You just need to get close enough to your subject to measure local areas in your subject.
Okay.
But if you do want to, some light meters have a spot meter attachment, and some meters are dedicated little spot meters. The problem with having a dedicated spot meter is there's lots of reasons why you want a regular light meter.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So you probably have to have both.
right. Well,
Oh,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
my inclination would be get a conventional light meter first, and then later, if you find you're shooting distant subjects where you need to measure small areas with a light meter, then go get yourself a spot meter.
Okay. All right. So we have the camera.
Yep.
We have film holders. We have a light meter.
Tripod.
Tripod. And mind you, so I can go get the smallest, easiest, most portable tripod.
No.
Yeah,
There's two
so,
things.
Yeah.
Weight is your friend.
Yeah,
Yes,
it definitely
because
is.
the cameras will rattle around even in a light breeze.
I have people that walk in here. They have a $5,000 digital camera,
Yeah.
and they want a $50 tripod. I'm
Yeah.
going, no.
No.
You know that's going to be so easy to go fall
Flip it
over,
over.
flip over, break your camera. You know, well, I don't want to spend $200. Okay, you got a $5,000 camera. $200 is nothing.
Right.
It's not even a lens.
Well, for
So,
view cameras,
yeah,
it's even more important.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, really heavy tripods have come out of favor, so they're
those are easy to
reasonably
find.
Once again,
priced.
cheap to get. Well, I mean, the speed graphic right there. I mean, that camera. I forget what. I think it's at least 10 pounds worth of camera. You know,
8 to 12 pounds.
we're looking at your Deerdorf 11x14 over there. What does that weigh?
That weighs
30.
about 45 pounds.
45 pounds. I mean, you're not going to put that on your tiny little tripod that also does your Nikon,
No.
your tiny little Nikon 35. It's not the same class.
That's right. But also, big tripods are very, very inexpensive because
Yeah.
most people don't use them.
The old Bogan ones, especially, you will find.
That's
that used
what
to
I
be in
use.
studios.
Yes.
And a lot of them studios are now portable and moving.
Yes.
Now, we're talking about the other tripod is the tilt-off. That
Well, this is the one that I'm using right
yeah.
here. So
That's
yeah,
that's-
my tripod broke, and we're actually over. I've got a tiny little camera on what I would consider a very robust tripod.
Yeah. But that was my dad's favorite tripod in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And he actually, up until he stopped going to camera shows, he would drive up to Denver and he would take a tilt-off and he built a bar that he put on it. He had his 4x5 field camera in the middle. He had a digital camera on one side and a film camera on the other. So he had a bar with 3 cameras on it. He'd sit it out on his tilt-off tripod, and then he'd take a digital, get the meter reading on it, and then go shoot his film cameras with it. And it was all there on one bar. And that's, anyway.
And it worked.
It worked.
It
I got that tripod around here somewhere.
Well, my experience, I've used tilt-alls for years.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that it's the lightest tripod you should consider to use with a light 4x5.
Yeah.
In other words, you can put a speed graphic or a
Easy,
crown
yeah.
graphic on a tilt-all and you're fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But anything lighter than that, you're going to wobble. Because
Oh,
when,
yeah.
when you put a film holder in a view camera, the camera
Shakes.
actually wobbles for 15, 20 seconds. So you have to wait for it to stop wobbling
Wow.
before you take the picture.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Oh yeah. With a smaller tripod. Now with a tripod that's a tank,
Yeah.
it's less time. But if you're out in the field, a little bit heavier tripod is your friend.
Definitely so.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
All right, so we've got a tripod.
Mhm.
What's the next thing?
Well, you need to decide what film you're going to shoot.
Film was good, but I was thinking equipment still.
Oh, equipment. So light meter, you need a dark cloth.
That's where I was going. Dark cloth.
You put it over
so
your head.
So a beach towel works, right?
Yeah. The way a view camera works is if you're using one where you're looking at a focusing screen in the back,
yep,
it's a piece of glass that has been roughed up so that the image from the lens will be seen on.
So here is my Intrepid view camera.
There it is.
And we have glass on the back.
That's right. Here's the focusing screen. Now, what happens is you focus on the glass, and then when you put the film holder in, the film plane ends up being in exactly the same position as the glass is.
Right.
And that way, whatever you see on the glass is exactly what you get on the film.
Right.
Okay.
However, in the bright sunlight, it is super hard to see what's on that piece of glass.
Right. So you have a cloth over your head, and you've seen those olden pictures where a guy has a cloth over his head. That's exactly why.
Yeah. I mean, that is really the only way you can see that. I mean, you would be so super faint, you would not be able to focus from it.
There's a famous photo of Ansel Adams. He's taking a school picture with a 4x5, and he's peeking out from under the dark cloth.
Dark cloth.
Right.
And so you got the kids there, you have the camera here, and he's got the dark cloth over his head with the camera, and he's smiling for a picture of the situation of its setup.
It's interesting you bring up people pictures. The way when you shoot people in a studio, whether an individual or a group with a view camera, what you do is you set up the composition in the image, you focus it, you get everything right, you put the film holder in, you wind the shutter, so you've got the cable release in your hand and you're ready. Then you get out from behind the camera and you interact with your people to get them to do what they need to do. And when they're just where they need to be and all the eyes are up, you just click it. And in fact, it's good to hide your hand where you're clicking so they don't even know the exact moment you were taking the picture.
Yeah.
All right. So, what about other incidentals? I'm thinking a good cable release.
And
what about a
can
lens?
Of dust off is good to have.
Yes.
If you have film holders and you're out in the open, there's going to be dust. So sometimes you need to dust off the holder before you put it in the camera.
So I know I just mentioned lens, and of course, a lot of people are going to jump into this thinking, "Oh my gosh, lenses are so expensive." I mean, it's like, and I think there is quite a range.
Yes,
they are.
There's something to keep in mind is that really, really sharp lenses, as used on press and view cameras, have been around since the end of the 19th century. The really, really sharp lenses go all the way back even to 1860.
Okay.
So what happens is, let's say you take a Schneider view camera lens called a Simar.
Okay.
You can get a Simar made in the 50s that's chrome in a chrome barrel. You can get a Simar S made in the 70s and 80s that has coating changes. You can get an Oppo Simar, which is even a newer lens where they changed the design because some of the glasses were no longer available to design the old lens. But the truth is that first Simar, like a normal lens and a 4x5, is a $120 lens. That's all it costs. If you buy the latest version of it, the Simar, Oppo Simar, it's $400. But the truth is, from a practical standpoint, they're interchangeable from a matter of performance.
Yeah.
So what you do is you buy an older lens that's really, really sharp. And then as you, if you want to later, you can upgrade and get newer ones. But the truth is, for most people's work, a Simar made in the 1950s, SYMMAR, is a magnificent lens, and they're very inexpensive.
Is anyone still making them new?
Yeah, you can still buy them new. Schneider has a limited catalog. But if you want to buy a brand new Simar, it's going to be thousands.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing about the lens, though, from my standpoint, is you have to make sure it has enough coverage for your film.
Yeah. If you have a lens whose focal length is equal to the diagonal length of the film,
right,
or longer, you don't have problems with coverage.
Right. So if you have a 4x5 piece of film, you need to go the diagonal, which is 6 some odd inches. I'll do Pythagorean thing for these guys here in a minute, but you're going to need a lens that's at least 6-7 inches in coverage. Obviously, when you're doing an 8x10, that's a much bigger lens, and 11x14 even bigger, because you're talking about a much wide. You need more viewing in the back of the camera, and especially if you're going to start doing tilting and shifting, because you need even more lens to be able to cover.
My feeling is that unless you're buying a dedicated wide angle lens as a wide angle lens. Most normal focal length lenses are longer than normal focal length. Coverage is not a problem. Coverage is a problem when, for instance, on a 4x5, a normal lens comes in at about 150 millimeters, a little shorter, around there. 135 millimeter lens is wide, but not too wide. Most lenses will cover fine. That's what you see on a lot of press cameras. But when you go down shorter than that, then like you're saying, it's really important to understand what the lens covers.
Okay, yeah.
Because when you start going into a 90 millimeter lens, which is like a 40 or so on a 35 millimeter camera, some will cover, some won't. And so the circle of illumination, which is what you're talking about,
right?
Well, that it fully covers the film size,
the ring of fire,
becomes the critical matter. Yeah.
Once you grab that one pinhole over there, because we only have a couple of cameras left on our here.
Yeah.
So this is this one, and I've never used, got lots of gray dust on it. This is my travel wide 4x5. It's got a tiny little lens on it. I think it's just a 90 millimeter lens. This camera is actually designed to be shot much like a Holga, because you just have you just twist the front here a little bit, and you're just going to say, okay, this is 8 feet out. You're going to slap a slide in here. You're going to fire the lens, and that's it. Mm-hmm. So you're not really going to, although it has a tripod mount, you're not really meant to put it on a tripod and do exact focusing.
Yes.
So you're supposed to just walk around and have
the point and shoot.
This is the point and shoot of 4x5. You're actually going to see, if you were to go on eBay and different places like that, you're going to find there's quite a few people who are now making 3D printed cameras like this that you can actually just slap on a tiny little lens. They fit 4x5. You get a little viewfinder, you just walk around, and you're just going to shoot. Mind you, that's still large format photography. You know, it's just not as finessed, and you're probably going to be going through more film because you're much quicker.
It's a different kind of thing.
There is probably one of my first, no, you can hold on to it. There is probably one of my first pinhole cameras that I bought off of eBay as well. Tiny little hole, but it also takes a 4x5 film holder. And these two knobs here is what screws in the film holder to keep it nice and light tight. Still a slow process, because obviously pinhole photography takes quite some time to get the image. Mm-hmm. But there are still many. I've seen people now who are making pinhole cameras with bellows. They're making nice wood cameras out of them, all that kind of good stuff, all for large format. They look really, really super nice. And
well, let's talk a little bit about the difference between a pinhole and a conventional camera.
Okay.
A conventional camera uses a lens, and through refraction focuses all the colors onto a flat plane.
Correct. Yeah.
Now
I agree.
And now a pinhole camera doesn't use refraction. It just limits the number of rays, the bundle of rays that will come through a tiny little hole.
Right.
And so it is not highly corrected, but it has, in most cases, so much depth of field that it's reasonably sharp and reasonably flat field, except out near the edges of the image in most cases.
Right. Well, and because it's a flat piece of film, the farther you get out, the more distorted it gets. I mean, really, there's a sweet spot in the middle of the pinhole image, but then from there.
Now, people use that for composition to great effect. And shooting with a 4x5, or even I've seen 8x10 pinhole cameras, you still get that magnificent tonal range, even though you don't get that absolute sharpness that you would see with a conventional lens.
Okay. Well, what else could we possibly tell people? As far as a new photographer into large format photography, what would be the biggest piece of advice you could give somebody?
Well,
I know this. Go to one of his meetups.
Well, that is step one.
Step one. Go to one of his meetups.
Admitting you have a problem is always step one.
And there's a group of people that can help you with that. And you don't have to remain anonymous, but.
Well, I think one of the places where I find people fall down is understanding how to really use a light meter.
Yeah.
So if you can get together with someone who really knows how to use a light meter, which could be someone like myself.
I know.
You learn how to use one, and then all of a sudden everything gets a lot easier.
That is great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think we need to wrap this up right now because the store's about to open and we might actually have interruptions.
We might. And have people come
What a
in.
concept.
I know.
What a concept.
People coming in here.
I call them
talking to-
interruptions. He
Yeah.
calls them customers.
That's right.
It's potatoes.
So
Good.
today what we're doing is we're up here, and of course you're not going to see this until after it happens.
Right.
Looking over cameras, talking large format, getting to know other people out there who have this fascination and love for it. Whoops, that's 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. Oh, that's his alarm. See, there's an interruption. I tell you what, guys.
But anyway, but after this, when you watch it, he will have a sort of a once a month get together.
Yeah, I try to have a once a month get together in the Dallas area, usually in the North Dallas, so it's accessible to Plano.
Yep.
And there, if you know nothing about view cameras, you don't have to feel embarrassed. All questions are good questions. You'll be with people who really love this stuff, so they'll be very quick to offer you help.
It's a safe space. Other large format
That's right.
photographers will be there.
Well,
So I tell you what, guys, after you're done watching this video, go
Yes.
to the Don's Instagram, because what we're going to do is we're going to do a live reel.
Yep.
We're going to have Andrew and Todd. We're going to put them right next to his big Deerdorf and point at that guys for you. So you go over there and check that out. But for right now, guys, that's going to be it for us. So as usual, please do share, like, subscribe.
Yep.
Tell a friend. Tell two
Tell a
friends.
friend to tell a friend.
Go down, check out the links, and come to a large format event here at either with Andrew himself or at one that's up here at Don's.
Yeah.
Have a
And
good
we
time.
hope to be doing more events like this tied in with large format.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for being here, guys. That's it for us.
All right, take
and
care.
we'll see you guys later.
Bye bye.
Now what happens?
Fade to black.
It fades to black. So we don't have to it just fades to black.